everyone, my name is Sarah Pedalaro from UNE's Organic Chemistry 251 lab with Professor DeVoe, and today I am creating a lab technique video for how to successfully complete a thin layer chromatography. Before we get into the technique portion of the video, I just want to give a little background as to why it's important to do a thin layer chromatography. Thin layer chromatography dates back to 1903 when a Russian scientist named Mikhail Savet did research on separation of plant pigments. Now back to the question of why. Why do a thin layer chromatography? What's the purpose of it? Performing a thin layer chromatography allows scientists to analytically separate organic molecules in a mixture. By doing so, one can identify the unknown compounds of the mixture, as well as determine the number of compounds and the purities of the compounds being sampled. A thin layer chromatography also helps monitor the course of a chemical reaction occurring. Step 1 of successfully completing a thin layer chromatography is going to be to prepare the TLC plate. You will do so by measuring about 1 centimeter from the bottom of the plate and lightly marking with a pencil both edges. During this step, make sure to only touch the edges of the plate and do not push down hard with your pencil. I recommend using a regular pencil and not mechanical, because that can disrupt the thin layer of absorbent on the plate. Step 2 is to sample your solution mixtures. To begin sampling your solution mixtures, you will start by filling a micropipette. You will dip one end of the capillary tube into the sample solution. When applying onto the TLC plate, you want to make sure to hold the micropipette vertically and only tap gently and briefly on the plate in between the prepared pencil marks. It's important to remove the pipette quickly so only a small drop of the solution is left on the plate. Allow the previous spot to dry before applying the next sample drop onto the plate. When applying your remaining sample spots onto your TLC plate, remember to use a clean, unused micropipette. When placing your sample spots onto the TLC plate, try your best to make each sample spot about the same size. Also make sure to place the sample spots a great enough distance away from each other so that the sample spots will not combine on the plate. Step number 3 is to use the heat gun. The purpose of this step is to evaporate any solvent that could have been used to dissolve the solute in the mixture. To use the heat gun, you want to hold down the TLC plate so that it does not fly away. Then, turn the heat gun on and evenly blow the hot air along the TLC plate. If this step is not done, streaking can and most likely will occur on the TLC plate when it is being developed. This makes the plate very difficult to analyze and follow. Step 4 is to develop the TLC plate, and to start, we will set up the developing chamber. You want to begin with a beaker that has just enough solvent in it so that if your TLC plate is placed into the chamber, the line of origin, where the pencil marks were prepared, will be slightly above the solvent meniscus. If there is too much solvent in the chamber and the TLC plate is added, the solution spots will leak into the solvent and completely ruin the chromatogram. Next, you want to add a paper wick 3/4 of the way into the beaker. A piece of paper towel will work out just fine. You then want to wait until the solvent has completely saturated the filter paper. It's important to cover the chamber with a watch glass to keep inside any solvent vapors. When the solvent has completely saturated the paper wick, it is now time to add the TLC plate to the chamber. Place the TLC plate into the chamber by only touching the edges. Then, cover the chamber with the watch glass. Wait until the solvent has traveled about 1 to 1.5 centimeters from the top of the plate. Then, carefully remove the TLC plate from the chamber, once again only touching the edges of the plate. Instantly mark where the solvent traveled up to on the plate. This is called the solvent front. Step 5 is going to be to visualize the TLC plate. We will visualize the plate first with a UV visible light box and then with an iodine sand chamber. Insert your TLC plate into the UV visible light box. Make sure the box is turned on so you can visualize the darkened spots on the plate. With your pencil, circle around the darkened spots that you can see on the plate. Remember to press down gently so you do not disrupt the absorbent on the plate. Next, we will visualize the TLC plate in the iodine chamber. Open the chamber and add the TLC plate. Close the top of the chamber and rotate the jar to allow for the entire plate to be submerged in the contents of the chamber. Then, take off the lid and remove the TLC plate from the chamber. Gloves may be worn during this step to prevent the iodine dye from getting on your hands. If there are any remaining spots that you did not visualize in the UV visible light box, then they should be seen during this step. And that is how to successfully complete a thin layer chromatography. Thanks for watching!